Hi guy, welcome back TV spoilers. New Year's Eve should have been a clean line between what was broken and what could begin again. But for Lily it felt more like a hairline cracking glass so thin it was almost invisible. Yet fragile enough that one wrong breath could shatter everything. She went to see Kane with a strange mix of resolve and confusion. As if she wasn't even sure whether she was walking toward an ending or reopening a door she'd spent months trying to seal. Kane's presence, the late year atmosphere, and the relentless symbolism of midnight all pressed on them, like a quiet force demanding a definition they weren't ready to give. Lily carried the exhaustion of constant self-control, telling herself to stay clear-headed, to keep boundaries, to protect what remained of her pride. But boundaries become dangerously soft when the right memory touches the right wound. And in that moment, Phyllis's name slid into the room like a needle. It didn't need to pierce deeply to make Lily flinch. People could say Lily came to confront Kane. But the truth was sharper. She came to confront the image that had been haunting her, the sight of Kane kissing Phyllis. It wasn't just jealousy or a misunderstanding, it was a symbol of Lily's oldest fear. The fear that trust can be bent in a single second. That everything she once built with Kane had been threatened too many times by chaos outside them, and the chaos inside them. When Lily admitted she had seen that kiss, it was both courage and self-defense. Courage because she no longer wanted to carry suspicion in silence. Self-defense because she needed a reason that felt rational, proof that her caution wasn't paranoia. Proof that distance wasn't cruelty but survival. By saying it out loud, Lily didn't just present an accusation. She forced Kane into a position where he had to explain, had to prove, had to fight for the right to be believed. Kane's reaction came fast, almost instinctive. Like a man cornered not by facts but by the possibility of losing his last anchor. He insisted he rejected that kiss, that he didn't welcome it, that it wasn't something he chose. Yet his explanation wasn't only about what happened or didn't happen, it was a battle over identity. Kane needed Lily to see him as worthy, as loyal, as the man he wanted to be for her. And when Lily wanted him to stay away, Kane felt a heat rise under his skin. A quiet anger that wasn't loud but was relentless. He wasn't just upset about being misunderstood. He was upset because Lily felt like a closed door, close enough for him to touch. Close enough to see what he once had and still shut in his face. For Kane, Lily wasn't simply a woman he loved. She was the meaning he clung to when everything else in his life threatened to become proof of failure. Loving Lily allowed him to believe that mistakes could be redeemed, that old patterns could be broken if he fought hard enough. So when Kane declared that Lily was the only woman for him, it wasn't just affection, it was desperation dressed as certainty. He tried to pin the future into place, as if naming it could make it real. In pushing Lily to accept their fate, Kane wasn't necessarily playing a cold power game. He was terrified that if he didn't hold on tightly, Lily would slip out of his orbit forever. The feeling had sincerity in it, but also danger. Kane was starting to blur the line between love and stubbornness, between pursuit and pressure. The more hesitant Lily became, the more Kane treated that hesitation as an obstacle to overcome rather than a warning to respect. He believed one strong turning point could change everything. And New Year's Eve, with all its ceremonial promise of beginnings, became the perfect stage for that belief. Lily's hesitation, however, was not a calculated game meant to toy with Kane. It was the result of a long, brutal inner war. She understood Kane's pull, understood what they had been, and understood that some part of her still wanted to believe in the best version of him. But Lily also understood the cost of believing wrong, the slow months of disappointment. The nights spent asking herself what she missed, what she excused, how she kept betraying her own instincts. The kiss she saw Kane and Phyllis still carried poison even if Kane claimed he rejected it. Because the image itself reshaped Lily's sense of safety. It made her doubt not only Kane but her own perception. She feared that if she softened, she would fall back into the same cycle where she healed wounds she never should have allowed to reopen. So when Lily let Kane pull her into a kiss just after midnight, it wasn't full surrender. It was a brief moment where she permitted herself to step over fear just for a second, hoping warmth could silence the noise in her head. Maybe she wanted to feel truth with her heart so she could stop interrogating it with her mind. But Lily's heart was not empty ground. It was marked by the footprints of every return and every departure. Every time she tried again and paid for it. Kane, on the other hand, almost immediately attached a larger meaning to that kiss than it could safely hold. He likely felt it was a real turning point, a sign that Lily was finally ready to accept his feelings. and give him a true chance to rebuild their family. That hope wasn't merely romantic, it was survival for him. When Kane looked at Lily, he didn't only see the woman he loved, he saw a future that could rescue him from the humiliation of feeling useless. He wanted to believe the kiss had reset the clock, that Lily had chosen him. And that belief made Kane both exhilarated and dangerously vulnerable. Because the more weight he put on one moment, the more he set himself up to collapse if that moment wasn't reinforced by what Lily did next. This is where tension thickened like low clouds before a storm. According to what's been revealed, Lily's actions after that kiss would not be what Kane hoped for or wanted. Instead, Lily would send mixed messages afterward, signals that moved close and then pulled away, offering hope and then withdrawing it as if she was afraid of the hope itself. If Kane entered the new day believing they had opened a new chapter, Lily entered it with a question that clawed at her. Had she just made a mistake? Or had she done what she needed to do? She might have wanted to move forward but couldn't endure the feeling of her future being decided by one emotional moment. And that guilt because she knew the kiss would mean something to Kane and could turn into defense. The more she sensed Kane clinging to the kiss as proof, the more she felt compelled to reclaim control by creating distance. Or at least by refusing to give him certainty she wasn't ready to offer. Lily's conflicting signals would shock Kane, even though he should have been used to them by now. That bitter thought should be used to it doesn't exist to blame Lily, but to expose the deeper cruelty of their history. Kane and Lily have lived too long in the gray zone where every gesture can be interpreted two ways. Kane has learned Lily pulls back when she's afraid, that she needs time, that she draws a boundary and then tests it. But being familiar with the pattern doesn't make it painless. Every time Lily sends opposing signals, Kane is thrown between two extremes, hope and rage. Hope, because he sees an opening. Rage, because the opening closes so quickly it feels like punishment. Kane's frustration builds not just because Lily is inconsistent, but because he feels trapped in endless waiting where his effort is neither accepted nor rejected, only suspended. And suspension is its own kind of torture. In that state, Kane becomes vulnerable to extremes. Either he clings harder or he lashes out, convinced he's being treated as disposable. Both choices carry the same risk. The stronger Kane reacts, the tighter Lily grips her distance to protect herself. And outside their emotional cyclone, Phyllis can sense opportunity the way she always does, by recognizing other people's instability and knowing exactly how to use it. Phyllis doesn't need to create chaos from nothing. She only has to pour fuel into the cracks that already exist. The kiss Lily witnessed between Kane and Phyllis became a spark. And then Lily kissed Kane after midnight, creating a perfect shape for manipulation. For Phyllis, the situation resembles a chessboard where one well-timed move could make Kane doubt Lily, make Lily doubt Kane, and make both of them doubt themselves. Phyllis can exploit the difference in how they interpret the same moment. Kane treats the kiss as a promise, Lily treats it as an experiment. One wants to nail down a future, the other wants to preserve the right to choose. That mismatch, if pushed in the right direction, becomes conflict. The more Kane grows frustrated, the more he risks stepping into the trap of his own expectations. He might start to believe Lily sends mixed messages because she wants him at a safe distance, but still wants him near an idea that would wound him deeply. But what Kane doesn't want to face is that Lily's fear isn't about hurting him. It's about refusing to betray herself again. Lily may still love Kane, but she also loves the version of herself that learned to stand after falling. She refuses to return to anyone in a way that makes her shrink. So Lily's mixed signals are more protective than manipulative. She wants to move forward, yet she needs to see whether Kane can respect her pace instead of trying to force her into his. Kane, however, is not built for patience when certainty is withheld. He wants an answer. He wants direction. And when Lily can't give it, Kane feels punished. That is the core tension. They are pulling in opposite psychological directions. Kane rushing to turn emotion into commitment, Lily holding commitment back to protect emotion. My TV Spoilers channel is always looking for content inspiration for each video, by compiling short video clips to analyze and offer my personal opinions. This channel specializes in analyzing, theorizing, and discussing plot points in the Young and the Restless series from the perspective of a longtime fan. Through this, viewers can gain deeper, more objective, and interesting insights. Subscribe to the channel to stay updated on the latest news about the Young and the Restless series. The most dangerous thing is how quietly all of this happens. No dialogue is needed to feel it in the pauses, in the hesitation, in the way each of them interprets the same event according to what they need to survive. Kane reads Lily's hesitation as a barrier to happiness. Lily reads Kane's pressure as proof he can still place his needs above her boundaries. Phyllis, waiting at the edge, only needs to stay positioned so the contradictions can grow. And the tragedy is that both Kane and Lily can genuinely believe they are trying for each other, even as the way they try begins to suffocate the other person. When the new day begins after that midnight kiss, what lingers isn't romance, it's a question suspended in the air. Was that kiss a beginning? Or was it simply a moment out of rhythm? Kane wants it to be destiny. Lily fears it might be the door back to a place where she once bled. And while Kane still clings to the feeling of a turning point to steady himself, Lily's mixed signals will begin to bend that belief slow. Relentless lie until Kane feels both stunned and furious. Like he touched the thing he wanted most and then had it ripped away. And worse, Phyllis won't miss a single beat of the fracture taking shape. Just as Kane thinks he finally understands what Lily wants, a new signal appears so contradictory he can't tell whether it's an invitation or a warning, setting the stage for everything to twist into something more dangerous. Right after New Year's, Kane's triangle with Lily and Phyllis should have found a clear landing point. After New Year's Eve, after emotions ran hot enough to force a choice. But instead it feels like a wound that was barely stitched shut and has already started bleeding again. No one is truly free. Because Kane remains the center of the spiral, he aches for a straight path back to Lily. Yet he keeps leaving openings that allow Phyllis to bend that path into something crooked and dangerous. And if we're being fair, Kane hasn't only been pushed around by circumstances. He has also sent too many mixed signals of his own. Because he will not cut Phyllis out of his life completely. Somewhere deep down, he may tell himself he's only handling the situation, that Phyllis is merely unresolved history. But for Lily, any gap wide enough for Phyllis to slip into becomes proof that Kane has never truly placed Lily in a position of unquestionable safety. After the kiss just after midnight, Kane carried a desperate kind of certainty that everything had finally shifted, that Lily had stopped running, that she had given him a sign strong enough to build on. That certainty doesn't last. It begins to erode the moment Lily's behavior fails to match what Kane needs it to mean. Instead of moving forward steadily, Lily retreats into silences that leave Kane unable to tell whether she is being careful or quietly leaving. She doesn't answer calls. Messages sit untouched like heavy objects she refuses to pick up. And it is that silence, more than anything, that starts to unbalance Kane. It doesn't merely worry him. It forces him to stare at his biggest fear, that New Year's was only a brief tremor in Lily. A second of weakness, not a decision. Kane starts leaving voicemail after voicemail, each one a thread thrown toward Lily. Each one exposing how close he is to panic. The more he reaches out, the more he hears his own desperation. The more he wonders where all of this is actually going. He needs a sign that he isn't chasing a fading silhouette. When no sign comes, his anxiety hardens into irritation. Not the childish kind that comes from being ignored, but the bitter frustration of someone trapped in an endless test with no answer key. And in that fragile state when Kane is easiest to influence, Phyllis appears like a gust of wind that knows exactly when to blow into a dying ember. Kane is irritated when she finds him, not necessarily because he hates her, but because he knows Phyllis always enters people's lives at their weakest, then turns that weakness into leverage. Phyllis can read Kane's emotions like an old map. She knows he is caught between hope and humiliation, that he wants Lily and fears Lily's rejection, and that when Kane feels abandoned, he tends to react in extremis, either clinging harder or turning sharply in another direction, just to avoid the pain of helplessness. For Phyllis, the situation doesn't need to be created from scratch, it only needs to be shaped. And once Kane is at his most breakable, she begins pressing exactly where it hurts his pride and his insecurity. Phyllis emphasizes a poisonous idea disguised as comfort. That Kane will never be good enough for Lily, that Lily is demanding and exacting, that she holds impossible standards that guarantee any man will fail. It sounds like sympathy, but it functions like venom. Phyllis doesn't need to prove Lily is cruel. She only needs to make Kane believe Lily will never truly open the door. Inside Kane's mind, that claim can start to feel like the missing explanation for every dead end. If Lily keeps pulling away, if Lily keeps disappearing into silence, maybe it's because Lily doesn't actually want him. And if Lily doesn't want him, then what is Kane doing besides humiliating himself? The more he thinks, the easier it becomes to imagine Phyllis is right, because the evidence in front of him is brutally convenient. Lily isn't responding, Lily isn't stepping closer. Lily isn't fully investing, even after a moment of intimacy that Kane saw as a milestone. The gap between the meaning Kane assigns to that moment and the distance Lily creates afterward leaves him disoriented. And disorientation is exactly the raw material Phyllis knows how to exploit. Kane begins to weigh the possibility that Lily never truly chose him, that she only let herself feel something for a second and then rebuilt the wall. Being lifted up and dropped again makes him furious, but it also makes him doubt himself. He wonders if he's being led by tiny signals, if he's clinging to an illusion because he is terrified of losing his family, terrified of admitting his love might not be enough to bring Lily back. He doesn't want to believe it, but the longer Lily's silence stretches, the more he is forced to interpret everything alone. And in that lonely interpretation, Phyllis becomes the one person standing beside him with a clear narrative, however twisted it may. Bet that Lily will never give him peace. That Lily will never stop measuring him, that Kane deserves to be somewhere he is considered enough. Phyllis turns Lily's silence into a verdict, turns uncertainty into proof, and turns Kane's fear into momentum that makes her feel like an escape route. That is when Phyllis aims for the most dangerous outcome. She tries to convince Kane to join the villain side with her. She doesn't have to say it in obvious words. She can guide him toward the same conclusion all the same. If Lily will never give him what he needs, why should Kane keep trying to become the version of himself that fits Lily's standards? Why shouldn't he choose an alliance with someone who fights harder? Who plays the game Lily refuses to play? Who promises control instead of waiting? Phyllis isn't offering pure romance. She is offering power, agency, and relief from the helplessness Kane is drowning in. And Kane, squeezed by Lily's empty space, may start to find that temptation more reasonable than he wants to admit. He may not be ready to betray his feelings for Lily, but Phyllis doesn't need immediate betrayal. She only needs a crack. She only needs him to admit that Lily might never come back in the way he dreams. From there, the slide becomes frighteningly smooth. The more Kane believes Lily isn't choosing him, the more he can justify listening to Phyllis as self-protection. The tension here isn't simply whether Kane wants Lily or wants Phyllis. It's the war inside him over his own worth. Kane wants Lily to see him as good enough to return to, steady enough to hold their family together. Yet he is exhausted by the constant sensation of having to prove himself. The longer Lily stays silent, the louder the doubt becomes inside Kane. And that doubt makes him cling to anyone who can dull the pain even if the dulling leads him in the wrong direction. Phyllis understands this, so she doesn't need to attack Lily with loud hatred. She only has to turn Lily into a symbol of judgment and turn Kane into the victim of a love that will never satisfy. And when Kane stands between two paths waiting for a woman who won't answer, or stepping into an alliance where he is always told he deserves more, his moral boundaries start to blur. Like fog swallowing a road. The most terrifying part is that Kane can still convince himself he's doing everything for love, that every shift he makes is merely a reaction to Lily's coldness. But that self-justification is exactly the door Phyllis needs. She doesn't need Kane to fall in love with her tonight. She only needs him to accept one idea: Lily will always push him away. Lily will always make him feel lacking. And Kane doesn't have to keep enduring it. And while Kane is being pulled toward that sweet, poisonous whisper, Lily remains silent on the other side. Desolence that could be fear, could be hesitation, could be boundary, but to Kane, it increasingly feels like rejection. As the distance grows with every unanswered call and every unread message, Kane is pushed toward a decision he can no longer avoid. Either he keeps waiting until Lily finally speaks, or he lets Phyllis lead him into a side of the story where, once he steps over the line, returning will feel nearly impossible.